Hi, very good evening. I'm so happy. Thanks all of you for joining this beautiful talk show that I have. And today I'm so happy to bring someone who was part of my one of my workshops called Sales Explosion 2 years back, and he's been in touch with me, and I have seen him grow in terms of setting up his business. So yeah, let me introduce today Mayank Singh. Mayank, thank you so much for taking your time and uh, being part of this channel. Thank you so much.
Hi Neeraj, thank you so much for having me here. Really privileged to do this for you.
Lovely, lovely. So before we start and before we talk more about what's this startup journey all about, what you did, I just wanted to introduce everyone who's Mayank Singh. So Mayank Singh is director with Neon Engineers. Now this is a company in fire and safety based out of Mumbai, and he's done his electronics engineers, and he worked for 6 years, which he's going to talk more about it, the different companies that he's worked for. And then finally last year Jan, he started his own venture. And I'm so happy, when in December he called me and he said, hey, he's got this award on the best emerging company award, right? I was pretty thrilled. And from that time onwards, I was thinking, when is a good time to get him on board, and he tells us about his startup journey. Because I have met so many youngsters who always had an idea, who always had an idea, who always had something that he wanted to do in their life, but never had the guts to move and go overboard and did and create a company, right? Because it needs guts, it needs courage. And I'm so happy, then when I listen to his success, which you are going to listen now, and so he's going to talk more about it, about his startup journey, about how he's got. Because for me, I think success is definitely something which is far-fetched, which is definitely we keep working on, right? But definitely, within 1 year, if you're getting these words, which you're setting up a company, you are doing well, it's a good step towards success, right? So, Mayank, tell us more about Neo Engineer. What is this all about, and how did this idea come to you about, starting with this kind of company?
Hey, as you can see, the brand name is Neon Engineers,
Mm-hmm.
and we are into fire and safety service side.
Mm-hmm.
We are basically system integrators for
Mm-hmm.
these type of you know products.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to the idea,
Mm-hmm.
uh, well, say you can say around 8 years from now, I had been to a hospital where I saw a lot of patients who
Mm-hmm.
were a victim of fire.
Mm-hmm.
And to that day, I think I promised myself that one day will come when I will do something in favor of this, to ensure that people actually take this thing called fire pretty seriously, because
So
it
true.
can actually uh, you know uh, create a lot of damage when it grows.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the whole awareness about fire and the hazard that it can do was something which was there in my mind, say 8 years ago, and I always wanted to step into that sector and do something for that particular sector.
Nice.
It so happened that 6 years ago I stepped into Mumbai. I was based out of Delhi. I did my
Mm-hmm.
engineering from there.
Mm-hmm.
I was working for a good company there, handling sales. Sales was something which was my passion. And I got an opportunity to work for a fire company here in Mumbai. And I came down, I started working for them. And just because, I had a lot of interest towards this particular
Mm-hmm.
sector, also my expertise being an electrical and engineer in this particular field. So I thought, why not start this? And after working for 6 years, understanding how this particular business runs, I finally took the decision to start off
Took
on
the
my own.
plunge to start this. Lovely, lovely.
Yes.
So tell me something. Like, this is something. Lot of I've met people in corporate, because I do a lot of corporate trainings in terms of leadership, sales, marketing. Now, what was the defining moment for you when you thought that now this is time? Because when I talk to people saying थोड़ा रुक जाते हैं, थोड़ा और कमा लेते हैं, जब मेरी सैलरी और जो दूसरी कंपनी जिसमें मैं ज्वाइन कर रहा हूँ वो सैलरी सेम हो जाए, then I am going to jump. And this is, I tell everybody, this is never going to happen. Never is going to happen that you're working in two boats and then suddenly you feel that, hey, that boat is better, you jump. So what was the defining moment for you when you said, let's do it?
So true when you said that you cannot actually imagine yourself coming out of that job security and then taking the same amount of salary from your business. But somewhere that is something that I kept as an aim for myself. I defined that if this is the amount of salary that I'm taking from my company as of now, I should be able to derive that much salary for myself for the next 2 years from this venture that I created. And what I believe is that until and unless you have the belief in your idea, you will never be convinced to take a step ahead and start something of your own. It Just because you asked, it's a very funny story that uh, a couple of years ago I was in a client meeting and I was giving a sales pitch to one of the clients who was sitting right in front of me. And like I said, I was always handling the sales side of a particular company.
Mhm.
So during the complete talks that we had, the whole time that I spent with the client, I always saw him taking some calls, making some decisions on behalf of that company. And that really made me feel mesmerized, and I was like, I want to be in that chair where I have to take the shots, and I want to feel that much responsible, and I want to take that much risk, and take the weight of the complete organization on my shoulder. Why not? See, somewhere I would like to blame my horoscope also, or my sunshine also. I'm a Leo. So
Okay.
until and unless it is not leadership, things don't actually
Did those
attract me.
work? Good, good, good. Nice, nice. Good.
So
So
that's
you from that point you thought, hey, let me be an employer. Let me sit
yes,
into the
yes,
chair where you
pretty
can do a
much,
difference.
pretty
Nice.
much. Where I thought that things can be executed my way, and I wanted to create a small, uh, you know, uh, I wanted to do a small contribution to this particular sector by
Lovely.
creating something.
Hmm. So tell me something. That other thing that I always keep on getting, sir, अभी funds नहीं है मेरे पास. I want to jump, but if I had the money, people always say, if I have the money, if I have the team, if I have resources, definitely, this idea is going to work. Now, typical challenges, as a startup, what were the typical challenges that you faced? I understand funds is something which is I feel, that is definitely you have an idea, but if you don't have the business plan, the sales plan, the marketing plan, the people plan about how you're going to do it, what is good going to take, what are the step-by-step process. So tell me the three top challenges that you had in order to kind of set up this up and move forward.
See, like I said, we come from the project background.
Mm,
So, funds, like you mentioned, is definitely one of the biggest challenges that we face.
mm-hmm.
But also, let me tell you that uh, the whole idea of starting Neon Engineers, right from the logo designing to registration of the company, I was completely concentrating on creating something that I always had a vision for. So for me, one is that your vision needs to be very strong.
Lovely.
If your vision is strong, then only you can actually go ahead and take that step. Funds should not be a problem. Trust me, I when I sometimes sit and I think that when I actually started this whole thing, I had 500 rupees in my account, and it was the end of the month, and like any other employee, I was waiting for my salary to be credited into my account. So at that point of time, I think if I would have thought about how the money would come in and how I would start, then I would have never been able to take that step.
Good.
It is only that I believed in the idea that I would be able to generate profit from this particular venture. I stepped into it and I convinced people. People generally shy away from going up to people and asking for money, but that is something that you cannot do as an entrepreneur. Because if one particular decision of you going there and asking for money, and he believing in your idea and investing, can change the fate of your company, you should take that shot.
So tell me, there I know, because I've been, my friends are there in fire and safety. One of my very close friends has been in fire and safety. He's like, he's a CEO of the company. Now, I know that these people are there for the last 20 years, right? And they are doing very well. How did you even think of, being a fresher and kind of, challenging these big companies and winning those big contracts? Because I've heard that you really picked up some big names. That's you maybe you tell us about the big names, because I've been hearing those big names. You've been telling me that those big names that you have picked up, and how did you challenge, and how did you pick up those projects in front of them? Like, what was that mental state of yours when you thought that, hey, you're going to challenge and do all this?
So there was never this feeling of going into the market, challenging somebody and buying a project.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole idea was to execute a particular project that interests me and challenges my technical
Lovely.
abilities. And, that's what something that I targeted for in the market. And that's what, and I think the most of the projects that we have done are being done because they were challenging. See, like I said, we got our inception happened on in the last year. For 1 year, I thought that this is the experimenting phase that you have at this point of time. Even if we make mistakes, uh, things will not go as bad, as we can imagine. If we make the same mistake once we are big, it can be a big loss for us. So like we had nothing to lose.
Good.
So we thought, why not, if we are experimenting, why not experiment with our technical capabilities and go take up projects that people think that we cannot, or probably even we think that we cannot. That made us challenge ourselves. That made us actually, once we started executing the projects, we started reaching a stage where we started ending projects and we started handing over these projects to the clients. We started believing in ourselves, and we thought that we have the capability to execute these projects, and now we can take a bigger leap and probably go to a bigger client. So for me, the strategy has always been baby steps,
Step by
especially
step. Nice.
uh, you know uh, uh, knowing the fact that this is a first generation company which is stepping into an industry where big players are involved, and where people have a lot of experience, a lot of uh, you know uh, uh, a lot of experience, a lot of funds to execute projects, a lot of manpower, a lot of technical capabilities to execute projects. At the same point of time, I think I use these things as my USP, where I, forefronted myself saying that, we are young and we want to experiment and we want to, be competent enough to be involved in projects which are technically difficult to or complicated to execute. And that made us fall, that made us learn. And today I feel we have grown from there. And that's whenever, so being an entrepreneur, whenever I see a rising graph, that makes me happy.
Nice, nice. I can see, you're already branding yourself pretty well, because that's the most important thing, because I teach in times of, sales and marketing. I say, hey, do a personal branding, right? Or brand your company. That's so important to do a proper branding. So I can see, that the shirt of yours, it says Neon Engineers. So what are the other branding techniques are you using? So like to make yourself different from other companies in this area?
So like you said, this industry is completely about showcasing yourselves,
Mm-hmm.
your brand, your
Mm-hmm.
technical abilities,
Mm-hmm.
and the strength and the manpower that you can give. So, having said that, I concentrated on each aspect equally, wherein I ensured that I am spending enough time planning and strategizing. How am I going to get the technical abilities, like just like I said, on side by side the funds, side by side the correct manpower. And one part of it was branding. Now branding is something which has always been close to my heart, and for me it fascinates me to create something. I've always been somebody who wants to create something new, and people and is seeking for appreciation. So I ensured that whatever things that I have or my team members use on the site has my logo on it. So I've
Lovely.
designed some shirts. I've designed recently, because of the COVID age, I've designed the masks which have our logos,
Nice.
safety kits that have our logos. So all those things. So see, one should learn. All the big companies, all MNCs, all established SMEs have been doing it, and they have been doing it constantly, and that's why they are there. And you should not miss out on one particular aspect being any one of it, be it finance, be it branding, be it the technical ability or the expertise to get a product or probably give a service. And once you stop working on one particular aspect, you don't generally understand it then, but in a certain period of time you do understand what mistakes you've done, and you need to pay heavily for that later on. So that was my strategy, that I'm going to give equal time to all these sectors to ensure that whatever creation that I'm going to do with Neon Engineers has its foundation very strong, so that even if things crumble down later on, I have the foundation strong and I just have to rebuild it from
Lovely. Lovely.
halfway and not right from the roots.
Good. Yeah, it's so important to have the foundations and all very strong, because a lot of people come into this kind of startup phase. I mean, thinking a lot of money as well. So I always say, create your right foundations. Right? What are you trying to do? So yeah, well said. Thank you so much for sharing that, because that's definitely very helpful. So tell us more about because uh, you said you need to sell your idea. As a sales guy, you need to sell idea. So how did you make sure that you created a team? Because I understand that that the team that you have created are the people who are working in corporates. How did you get them believe in the idea, and how did they join you in this startup venture? Tell us more about who all are your team and how did you convince them?
See, when it comes to sales in this particular industry, I believe that one thing which is the key is you should know how to handle accounts, and basically with which I mean key account handling. So if you know how to handle key accounts as a sales guy, then doing sales in this particular industry becomes slightly easier. Why? Because a lot of sales in this industry happens through referencing. If you have already performed somewhere and you have executed a particular project, you are being showcased by, or you are being seen by a lot of other companies, where from where you start making contacts, you start exhausting those contacts, waiting for leads. See, once a project is there in the market and a particular building is coming up, firefighting work has to happen. It is all about, if you have the right contacts, to know whether at the right time, that when that particular tender for that particular project is going to come out. If you know the exact time and you know that this particular is going to be out, you can, then the rest game, like I said, is upon the rest of the hurdles, the technical capabilities, the funds to execute it, the manpower to execute it, etc., etc., etc. So the first challenge here is to ensure that whatever work you have done in the past has been applauded by the customers. So one is that we use a lot of customer testimonies, which I feel is very effective for us, because when we tell other people that some people have previously used our services and are very happy with the kind of services that we are giving, then they start believing in you. And once they start believing in you, it just starts with one job, and once that is done, you get multiple jobs from the same client. So like I said, key account handling, and the other point is ensuring that you are making proper contacts and networking, basically. So you're
Networking. So that's also that is the key thing nowadays. What I always say for the salespeople, also the people networking is so important. Go network, go talk to people, because many time a lot of people say, hey, wait over dinner, just pick up your phone. Just pick up your phone, start talking to people. You never know whom you can get connected to. That's the best way to do, because as rightly said, people are very conscious about, should I call them up? I said, hey, that's the best way. You have a product, you have something which you give it to the society, which is useful for people. Just start connecting. That's what it's all about. It's about building a network, right?
so true. So
So
true.
true. So yeah, that's great. But tell me us more about your team. Like, who all is their team? Because everybody says it's like Akbar has its Navratans, because you are not going to be everywhere. You can't be a sales guy. You can't be a operations guy. You can't be accounts guy. You have to have your own Navratans. You need to have your team, which is going to be motivated, which is going to be believing in your vision and going ahead and doing what is required to take your company ahead. So tell us about your team. Who all are there, and what are the, and how did you convince them to join you? That's the most important thing, because nobody wants to start with join a startup. Everybody at your age is looking for join the Infosys, the Accenture. I believe you were part of Accenture. You told me, like, you did get selected in Accenture. You left that thing and came into this area. So what was it that they really truly believed in this idea, and they thought of joining you?
Okay, so when it comes to the team structure, this particular company has two directors, me and my partner.
Mm-hmm.
Both of us, we had this feeling that we have our equal sets of skills that are required to execute a particular project in this particular industry.
Mm-hmm.
So we thought of using those skills. Like you said, uh, one person cannot do all the jobs, like
Mm-hmm.
jobs of a peon, job of a accountant, job of a sales guy, a procurement guy. But trust me, me and Kiran, for the first 6 months, just for the sake of not taking enough overheads, we decided not to keep any team, and we were on the foot. Trust me, we were doing deliveries also on foot. Uh, right from the job of a peon to the job of a director of signing
That's
checks.
what is a that was is a success behind, you need to be on the ground. Good, good.
Correct. So everything was being done by us. But I believe it there is a negative side to this also, and that is that once you start doing all these things on your own, you certainly after some time feel it very difficult to leave it to somebody to handle things, and that becomes a challenge sometimes for a company to grow, because sometimes there are people who can handle things better than you,
Mm-hmm.
and just because you have been in the habit of handling things on your own, you want things in your own way. So keeping that in mind, we finally thought of expanding, and currently we have a team of good 8 people
Lovely.
are there on the field executing jobs. Sales is generally taken care by me only. The operations is taken care by my partners, like I said, Mr. Kiran Patnaik. And both of us, we are running this whole show. And
Good, good.
a few people in the execution team who help us getting our job done and ensuring that we are billing to our client properly, and giving them the right kind of job the way they want.
Nice, nice. So on a lighter note, I heard you got married last year, like last year in December. So generally, uh, I've heard the people or the guys who are doing a startup, generally, parents don't give their daughters to them to get married. That was something which was always there. So how did your who's been your partner? How did you make sure that she believes in you, saying, hey, you know, leaving a corporate job and starting a startup and then getting married to you? Tell us more about it.
I've been very lucky, to be really
Uh-huh.
honest. People around me, people really close to me, have always believed in the fact that I am not somebody who will restrict myself to being uh, an employee,
Uh-huh.
because one idea was very clear in everybody's head, which I ensured that one day, today or tomorrow, I'm going to start something of my own, and
Mhm.
you better be ready with it.
So
Uh,
so you
with
you making sure people are tuned to that idea, saying, hey,
yes,
this is what it is. Okay.
pretty much. You have to see, if
Hmm.
you have to start something, you don't have to look at it only from the professional point of view. You also have to see whether your personal life would allow you to continue doing what you're doing for a longer point of time, because you never know. Sometimes an idea takes years to give results, and during that scenario, if you are not comfortable personally, then generally what happens is that you either end up doing what you are not willing to do from on the professional front or on the personal front, which I thought was not something which I wanted to get into. So it was, one idea was very clear in my head, that I'm going to prepare people around me well before I take the step of getting into my own venture. So it was a very calculated step. The planning for this particular thing was not that I just woke up one day and I thought that there is an idea, that idea works, and now I make a business plan and I start running to the investors for money, that you invest and it will work. It doesn't happen like that. You have to prepare yourself, you have to prepare people around you to ensure that in the longer run, if you have to sustain in the race, then you probably have to sacrifice a lot of things, and you should be ready for that. So having said that, I've been very lucky that
You've been tuning people around you that, hey, I'm going to do this. Better be ready with this kind of
yes,
stuff. take
Yes,
take
correct.
this. Nice. So tell me something, when you're speaking, I'm looking at your face, and I see that a lot of conviction out there, right? No? So how much do you think, mental strength is so important for your success? Because I'm sure during your journey, there would be times when you've invested, you've done, because I think, the kind of work that you do, it runs in crores. And it would be times when you must have felt that, hey, money is not coming in, things are not working the way you have planned it. So did you have times when you thought, nah, it's not going to work, let me quit, let me do something? Was there any time, do you have that iota of an idea saying, this is not working, this is not for me?
Oh,
Or
every,
you were like mentally very strong saying, whatever happens, I've burned my boats, I'm going to go forward?
oh, every day.
Okay.
And it would happen, see,
Uh-huh.
and it, especially after the whole COVID thing,
Uh-huh.
I'm pretty sure a lot of young entrepreneurs or emerging companies, small SMEs who barely started. I sometimes think to myself, imagine somebody who started his company in Feb 2020. He must be feeling destroyed. That I just started something and a pandemic
I
came,
know, I know.
and
Mm,
now 6 months no business.
mm,
So he must be feeling hand tied. So see, one thing is for sure, and that is that I define success is something which is like a mirage.
mm,
You run after it. It is all about running after it. You will never find it. If somebody finds success, people will stop running and stop growing from then and there.
mhm,
So that is not something that success can be defined as. Success can only be defined as a race. So I believe if you have to be in the race, two things have to be there to qualify you for that. One is perseverance, and second is mental endurance. Because if you cannot endure things mentally, then probably in critical situations when your company, when your firm needs you, you will not be effective. And
mm.
that would not be something that would be very nice that you would be doing to yourself or your company. So yes, mental endurance is a key to success. You have to be pretty much sure about what you're doing. You have to be pretty much calm about what you're doing. Taking decisions just because things are not working out would not yield anything. Would rather lose your client. You have to think several times before doing that. So mental endurance and obviously the perseverance to carry your idea, to carry your vision.
I like the word perseverance, because that is something, people, especially your age, they come to me saying, hey, we need business coaching, we need sales coaching. Tell us how to make this happen. I need a crore. I said, hey, what problem are you solving? I can understand the problem that you're solving is so good. Like, hey, when you see buildings, still people have not put fire and safety standards. There's so many places. Like, I live in a building where I don't see much in terms of fire and safety that people are doing. So I think it's more of awareness that, hey, this is important. After all these hazards that have happened, it is so important to have that, right? So it's all about what you're doing mentally, and the perseverance thing. Like, have patience. Once you have an idea, believe in an idea, have the trust in an idea, so that and then move step by step, which I think you have done it wonderfully. Fantastic. I'm so happy. All right, good. Next, so tell us more about, how did your parents, because leaving a job and starting entrepreneurship journey, and I think, after 6 years, people force you to say, hey, get married, this is the time to get married. And at that time, when you're like going about it, you're like leaving that coveted job and starting an entrepreneur. So I understand your dad is an army and your mom is a housewife. So tell us more about, how did your parents support you in during this journey?
So just like I said, I always ensured that I make people comfortable with the fact that finally I'm going to do that. They also they had enough belief in me that I would
Mm-hmm.
be able to do what I want to do independently. I always had this thing in myself that whatever said and done, once I would commit to myself, I would then not look back. And that is something that has carried me this long. Even during the whole pandemic, we were doing decent business. And,
Oh,
uh,
that's interesting. So how did that happen? Like, tell, like, after this, maybe I'm going to ask you that. So first tell me about your family support, and then we're going to talk about what you
yeah,
did in
so,
COVID. Yeah.
so there was enough support from them. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, they were always keen to see me start something of my own. So it was not really tough convincing them. They
Good.
had the belief in me, I had the belief in my idea, and that made it work.
Nice. Good, 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 good. So tell us more about COVID, because I heard a lot of, as you said, I have people who had a very difficult time. So tell us, because you had an idea, it was going very well. It was like, you're on the field and you're hitting centuries and you're getting good business. Suddenly, boom, everything stops. How did you cope up with it, and what did you do different? Because a lot of people are like, you need to think out of box. So what did you do different in terms of strategy to make sure that you still sail?
See, initially when the lockdown actually happened, to be really honest, I was stunned, and I actually didn't know what to do, especially with a company that was started just a year ago, and we were doing well. And as far as the situation was there, I could see how France was suffering. I could see how the number of cases were rising pan world. And at that point of time, luckily, India didn't have a lot of cases. Uh, but I knew that if the lockdown happens, it will happen for long, and I had no clue what to do. But after introspecting for, let's say, 2 3 days, I got to a point where I thought that there are only three situations how I am going to spend my time during this lockdown. One situation being that I take a complete rest of 3 months, saying that I've worked enough for 1 year, and I've taken out my salary for 1 year. I'm doing decent business. The business is down for everybody, not only for me. And I can sit tight here and sit at home, chill for 3 months, and then after 3 months, once things open up, and then we'll see what happens. The second situation being that I work upon things that I did not get the time to work upon during the whole 1 year of my operations because of the daily routine of the office or the work that we do. So things like concentrating more on branding, probably channelizing yourself more towards LinkedIn than Facebook, because LinkedIn being a professional page would help you getting more contacts, which means networking. So one thing that I had been neglecting was my LinkedIn, which I immediately started working upon. The third situation that I thought was that this is an opportunity for me to understand that some products are not going to be sold in this particular situation, but some products would be there in abundant need, and these products would be products like gloves, like infrared thermometers, like things like sanitizers. And immediately, I think it took me 2 to 3 days. At that point of time, this particular lockdown was still supposed to be announced, and just a day before, we did a partnership with a company where we started supplying things like gloves,
Kudos.
nitrile gloves
Nice.
and latex gloves and
Hmm.
sanitizers and everything. We could make this much money that we could feed ourselves during the whole COVID. We could give salaries to our team. We could ensure that they are okay and they are safe during the whole period. It is still going on, but luckily things have started moving. The sites are opening up, and
Nice.
some projects which were closed are going to start soon. So these people who were there at home since last 3 months, not being able to go on the sites to execute projects, will now be going on the site with proper safety measures and executing the same projects. So it made me learn a lot of things. I worked, like I said, I worked on only two things. One was things that I could not concentrate upon during the whole time of 1 year of operations. And the second thing was getting into new products. So I also partnered with a US company, and they are into artificial intelligence based video surveillance. So just imagine if a camera can tell you where the people who are there in its frame have temperatures above 98 degrees Celsius.
This
And
is a interesting thing. I'm thinking, I'm sure this is going to be helpful for many, So
so
like there are malls, there are like areas where, construction, there are like factories, there are companies where you are doing it manually. But if because I know companies where like people comes in thousands. right? So if you have something like this, definitely it will be an alert, and you don't have to do all this manual activity. Is this operational? Is this something which
Yes,
is there?
pretty much. Pretty much.
Nice.
The product is up and ready. We
Good.
have already deployed this particular product uh,
Mm,
in a couple of places.
nice.
We are pitching a lot of people, especially hospitals. We are pitching. So
Good.
yes,
Good.
so, during the whole COVID age, I understood that you should not stop innovating. You should always all big MNCs, all big companies, if you'll see, they keep at least 5 to 6% of of their profits into R&D, and there is a reason to that, and that is that if you do not grow with the market and you do not upgrade yourself with the latest trends, then your company is going to die out eventually. And if you want to create something which stays forever, which stays like Reliance is staying, which stays like Tata's is saying, then you know you need to spend on R&D. You need to keep introspecting into your company and finding out what new you can introduce and what new you can try. You should never, I feel, shy away from trying new things. If you start doing that, then somewhere you are hurting your own potential.
No, I'm so happy, because I always, like, this is something which I say, hey, keep innovating, because like Toyota, it was doing very well, when they were like, they were producing those SUVs, and suddenly, there were others also doing the same SUVs business, and then I heard that, when they were at the peak, they kind of, closed it totally, and then they came up with Innova, like, which is absolute innovation. So, I think this is fantastic to hear from you that, hey, you have been innovating, you come up with new products and services, because that's what, as an entrepreneur, right, it is like, in the journey of creating something new which can value add to the society. Fantastic. That's so happy to, and that product, maybe, we can talk about it. That's really interesting, which we can, a lot of people can pitch to different industry. That's great. Good. So yeah, so you reached here, Mayank. I'm sure you must be very happy that, hey, you got the space, you had an idea, because 70 to 80% companies fail in the first 2 years. So you reached here, you've done well. Where do you go next? What do you see yourself? So next time, and within a couple of years, when I do interview you again, where do you see yourself from here?
Like I said, learning.
Mm-hmm.
Learning is something which is a curve that I always want to see rising
Mm-hmm.
for myself and my team. Uh, I always believe that however you are doing, whatever profits you've made, whatever turnovers you're doing, if you're
Mm-hmm.
not learning from your mistakes, then surely the karma will come back and bite you. And I'm a big believer of that. Having
Mm-hmm.
said that, I believe that in the coming years, I would be again giving a lot of time in innovation, in ensuring that there is proper customer satisfaction from with whatever services or products that we are doing, and to ensure that I have to ensure that I have to pass on this particular ideology to the complete team of keep increasing their learning curve, because I know they'll make mistakes, I'll make mistakes, and at the end of the day it is all about handling them and ensuring that you don't repeat it, and that is very important for me. So
Lovely,
like you
lovely.
said,
Fantastic. I'm so happy. It's all said. हम जीतते हैं या सीखते हैं, हम हारते कभी नहीं है. We win or we learn, but we never lose. And I can see that embodied so strongly inside you when you're talking about it. So yeah, uh, Mayank, it was pleasure talking to you. Uh, just one last word for the people who are in 95, who are still thinking, should we do it? Should we not do it? Should we do it? Should we not do it? So what is that one thing that you want to tell them? And the second thing is, do tell us about how do we get to know about fire and safety, because it's such a important thing which still a lot of builders, a lot of folks have still not been aware that, hey, fire and safety is important. You have a house, keep something in terms of fire extinguishers, keep something in terms of CCTVs, something to do to make sure that you are safe, apart from doing your insurance, right? So tell us more about those two things. One, what is the message that you want to give it to those people who are still stuck in 9 to 5 and still have an idea but have not executed it? And tell us about how do we get awareness about fire and safety?
so the message that I would want to give it to them would be that if you're still thinking,
Mm-hmm.
that whether you should leave or not, then probably you should not. Because if you're starting something of your own, uncertainty is not something that you can have on your head, in your head for a very long time. You need to take a decision and then ensure that it is being executed properly.
Take action right away.
Action
Mm.
and learn from it.
Uh,
See, I believe people, like just like you said, people have this fear of not stepping out of their jobs and starting their own, is because they feel that they will not be able to make that much a name, or probably that much mark that they want to create in
mhm,
this world. But that if that fear persists inside you, then you will never be able to. So
mm,
the first challenge would be to get rid of that fear. Once you are able to accomplish that, the first step is taken, and the rest is all about registering the firm and starting the operations. So I believe people who want to start have to first get rid of this fear, and people who are still thinking are not supposed to start something of this.
so true, so true. And tell us about fire and safety, because it's so important for me. People are aware that it is important. Don't take it very lightly. So what are you doing in terms of spreading the awareness, apart from whatever you're doing in terms of,
It
the
can be
work?
disastrous. Fire can be disastrous,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll not imagine. I always give this example uh, whenever I'm sitting in some summit or I'm asked to talk about it, and I say that years ago a comic book and a cartoon came, that was Jungle Book,
Mm-hmm.
which taught us that what kind of damage fire can do to a
Mm-hmm.
particular place.
Mm-hmm.
uh, you know, it is something that I have seen people suffering from. The fire burns, the amount of damage it does to your property. There are a lot of situations that have happened in Mumbai, in India. There are fire cases every day. The anything in terms of fire security or fire safety or fire fighting, in terms of the compliance, should be maintained in all, especially the residential areas. I also believe the kind of awareness that we need to give is mostly to people who are living in slums, because there the chances of fire is really high. You
Mm-hmm.
will not imagine, there are so many cases of the cylinders getting bursted and fire due to that in slums, and there it becomes uncontrollable because the space is so less that even the fire tender cannot enter and
I know.
actually extinguish the fire.
Mm-hmm.
So awareness about it, proper education about it. It should be taught in schools, in physical education, how to cope up with fire.
That is, I
Still
think that's a great idea, to make it as a part of a curriculum, right? And people get to know about it. Yeah, that's
get
fantastic. That's a great idea. Yeah.
this, because still today you will find people, if somebody has got fire in his on his hand, people will go and they will just throw water on their hand, and that is just disastrous, and you cannot do that. So either you have to cover it with a blanket or probably use a fire extinguisher, because putting water into it will actually make his skin melt,
Aggravate. Yes.
and that is more damage later on, because that much of skin crafting would take to finally ensure that that hand is working properly or not later on. So that basic knowledge about how to cope up with fire, because it is something which is created by human and is nowadays a need. You need fire to cook food, you need
Mm,
fire for everything.
mm.
So you should be aware to how to handle it, and once you are aware how to handle it, then I think a lot of people would be pretty much safe on their own.
Lovely, lovely. Mayank, it was a pleasure talking to you again, and I think that's a beautiful idea. So, guys, thank you for the questions, because I got some questions and I've asked him. I think this is all settled. Thank you so much for joining this call. Before you leave, I'll send you the link of New Engineers, and I'll put Mayank's number out there. So, if you have any questions on fire and safety, and you think that you need to know something, I'm sure he is available right now to kind of answer those questions to you. And this is Neeraj Singh Rathore, your sales coach, your entrepreneur, and author. As you can see, my books out there. And do tell me if you want to kind of learn more about sales and marketing, learn more about entrepreneurship. I have folks like Mayank who have been doing it, who have had the courage. So if you want to know more, drop your questions. Do share, like, and comment as usual. And thank you so much for watching the videos. We'll connect you again next week. Thanks, Mayank. Thanks again for joining this call, and wish you all the luck for new engineers. Take it and take it to the heights that is required. Thank you. Thank you for joining.
Thank you so much, Neil. Thank you.